Hello everyone, today I would like to reflect on the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. As a matter of fact, there are three contemporary ways to look at this model. The first is actually that this model is nonsense and we shouldn't do it. We should stick to a single bottom line, which is profit. This is also known as a shareholder's approach. The business is entirely driven according to the values of the shareholders, which is probably the maximization of their profits. As Milton Friedman would have put it, the business of business is business. Do not pretend that an undertaking can do something else than just making profit, and do not pretend that a business can be used to solve societal problems in the first place. Well, this sounds like a very negative attitude, a negative approach in terms of the position of the private sector. But at the same time, Milton Friedman gives us a certain wake-up call and asks us to be realistic. And he had some very sound arguments to protect his viewpoints. And not in the least, the argument that, a business is not a living species. How can you expect a non-living entity to do ethics, to be ethical, to perform a certain sense of morality? It's more like a vessel that is created to maximize profit. Well, why not use it accordingly? He also believes that the solving of social problems is something we should do through political processes with preferably a democratic origin. So when we want to solve a problem that society is facing, then society is the one that should solve it, not a business. Today, there are a lot of people who disagree with this viewpoint, as valid as its arguments may seem. And they turn a little bit more to a stakeholders approach, meaning that you do not only run a business according to the values of its shareholders, but also according to the values of its stakeholders. That means those who are affected by the organization, the private organization, or those who can affect the private organization. That mostly includes workers, consumers, citizens, but also the environment and our planet. That is why, amongst others, John Elkington came up with the idea of a triple bottom line. Not a single bottom line, just profit, but a triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. And there are two distinctive ways to look at this particular triple bottom line. The first is as a principle, and the second is as a business model. So let's discuss this first approach a bit more into detail. When you consider a bottom line as a principle, it means that no matter what you do, the company should not sacrifice values it wants to uphold in the field of people and planet or profit. They are equally important and they should go hand in hand in just running your business. And it's a no-go to sacrifice values in the field of the environment or social values for just making profit, and not the other way around as well. So they are all three some kind of a principle bottom line you should not violate, period. The triple bottom line, as it was originally intended as a principle, is more like a deontological approach, if you like. We act from the perspective of principles. Perhaps a more realistic approach that probably is better understood in today's business life would be to consider the triple bottom line as a business model rather than a principle. The idea is simple. When you invest in people and when you invest in the planet, it eventually leads to a more sustainable business, and also, therefore, it leads to a better, more sustainable and higher profit realization. The idea is quite simple. When you invest in your people, in your employees, and you make sure that they are happy in their work and that they are well paid, they might also be more motivated to come up with more innovative ideas and just stay a bit longer in your organization, if you like. And when you invest in more sustainable solutions that do not damage your planet in the first place, on the long run, you are not depending on non-renewable energy sources, for instance, which somehow, somewhere in the future, will lead to a break-even point, and it will become a saving instead of a cost. So the business model approach obviously is a consequentialist approach. When you invest in certain things and it leads to a certain result, it's a good thing. While this seems to be the most realistic approach, it can also be a problematic approach. When things go well hand in hand with one another, it probably leads to a happy ending all the time. So when you invest in people and when you invest in planet and it leads indeed to a profit, then we're all happy and it works. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't work this way? What if a business will have to choose between something really unethical and sustaining its business and doing something ethical, but perhaps then facing bankruptcy? Probably the average business will choose to do the first thing and not the last thing, because it wants to sustain its business. It wants to survive, in a way, if you like. In such a situation, considering the triple bottom line just as a business model may not always work. And also in certain branches, it might become a problem where there are very unsustainable patterns in a more macro setting already there. You cannot just change that, most of the time, that is, when you are just a small business and you try to compete. So where it works, it seems to be a wonderful business model. People, planet, profit. They can mutually strengthen one another. But it only works the way up. It does not necessarily work the way down. At least not always. So I would advise some caution here when you overly enthusiastic embrace the idea of a business model to implement people, planet, and profit. And sometimes perhaps also consider the more deontological approach, consider it as a principle. Well, perhaps, maybe you need a bit of both. We'll see. Anyway, I hope you've learned a few things about this model, people, planet, profit. The contemporary viewpoints you can apply here, varying from its nonsense to it's very useful as a business model. And thank you very much for watching. Good luck with studying. Goodbye.